Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols and I'm here to bring you your Nichols Worth. Today we're going to talk about my first 30 days of my read through of the MEV, but on this video we're going to more focus on the product, how it's built, the font size, and how it compares to its previous edition. So let's go ahead and take a look. First of all, this one actually comes in a full box with a little window. I do like that. I like the box better than the slipcase simply because it protects it a little more. This one is a different color. The color is not listed on the box, so I'm not exactly sure what you would call this. It's sort of like a tan. I really do like the antique look there, but this is the first edition with several typos in it. And you can see it has the bronzish gilding there. This is put out by Passio Publishing, and it has a 12-point font. Has pretty thin paper. It is really nicely laid out. I definitely like it. But one of the big complaints about this one is not only the pages sticking together, but it's also a red letter edition. And the red letter was not very good in this one. So we're going to go ahead and leave this open and compare it to this. This is in the cherry brown. Really beautiful cover. Like it. And I have used this for about a month, so it's going to have some wear on it. I've carried it everywhere I've gone and use it every day to read from. And you can see the gold is already starting to wear off on the spine. So that's something to keep in mind as you use this. These are very inexpensive, by the way, extremely affordable. It has a paper liner. It does have that bronzed gilding. I really do like that. And as you can see, as I'm using it, it's starting to kind of wear in, and the white in the pages is starting to show. That's just part of using a Bible every day. And of course the back, beautiful. And as we open it up, you're going to see a very similar layout to this, and this is a 12-point font, and I believe every bit of it. The leading space, the layout, very nice. This is a large print personal size Bible, so it's going to be in that 8.5 by 5.5 range. But let's go ahead and get to the red letter, because that is where I think the biggest improvement shows. Let's look at this. If you look and see, that red letter is kind of a bright, this one's more of a dark burgundy. Huge, massive improvement. So now let's talk about a couple of things in this Bible before we dive into the translation. Number one is their use of the textual footnotes is mostly going to be to give you those tables of weights and measures. For example, this deals with cubits and lets you know that it's about 1.5 feet, so you don't have to do that math in your head. It's already done on the bottom. And also every other weight, every other measure, it's all done for you so that you don't have to go to the back to decide how big was this and how tall was this. It does that for you in the footnotes. So I thought that was really nice. Another thing about this that I really like is whenever it's referenced somewhere else, it'll let you know that reference in the subheading. For example, right here. So when this story, Israel rebels against Rehoboam, you know that story is also found in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 1 through 24, while this one is in 2 Chronicles chapter 10. So I really like that. You're going to notice that does ghost through the paper with the highlighter, but there is no bleed through. There's a difference between bleed through and ghosting. Bleed through is when it actually bleeds through the page and you can see that ink on the other side. There's no ink bleeding through. That's just ghosting. That's due to the nature of this paper. This text is beautifully line matched. It's in a paragraph format, so you're going to see that it really masks that ghosting. But once you get into the poetry, one thing about this they did right is they center justified the poetry. So that also masks that ghosting pretty good. So honestly, there's been some fuss about this paper, but I actually like the paper. Yeah, it's a little thin. I would guess this to be around 30 GSM paper. This also has really short, brief book introductions. Very nice layout overall. It's been a great reading experience for me so far. Now, let me talk to you about my reading experience, and I'm going to show you a couple of things in this that I found interesting. I am about to the poetry at this point, but this reads very smooth, and it feels like home to me. And home to me is that KJV, NKJV, ESV territory. And this really reads beautifully. I am looking forward to when I get to the Psalms and Proverbs and really get into that poetry, because I'm wondering how this poetry is going to render. I've got a feeling it's going to be modern yet beautiful. And I think that's important, that poetry sounds like poetry. Now let's get to a couple things in the translation I thought was interesting. First of all, you have a covenant with what appears to be three different gods here. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father. But then it says, then Jacob vowed by the fear of the Lord, and the word fear there is capitalized. Now that tells you a couple of things here. Number one, they believe that that is divine. So that is a reference to the Lord himself. And it also lets you know that they capitalize the pronouns when referencing deity. So if that's something that you like, this translation does that. I saw a couple places where perhaps they may have missed it, but for the most part, the pronouns referencing deity are capitalized in this. Another interesting thing that I experienced in this translation is when you get to 2 Samuel chapter 12, and it talks about what David did to occupied nations when they came into Israel. Now, the King James and several other translations say that he put them under saws, like he tormented them. But the Hebrew word there for under can also mean to assign to. So it seems that instead of like torturous death, he actually just assigned them to slave labor. And this one does the same thing. It says he brought the people who were in it and put them to work with saws and iron picks and axes and sent them to work in the brick kiln. Some translations say that he cut them with saws, basically, tortured them with irons and axes, and burned them in brick kilns. That is not what happened. And I love how this text handles that. Also, if you look in Chronicles chapter 20, verse 3, it's going to reference that same thing, and it's worded the same way. So one last thing that I found interesting in this translation is when we get to 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 19, and it says, "And Elhanan, the son of Jair-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath, the Gittite, whose spear shaft was like a weaver's beam." And then in the footnote, it just says that the Hebrew does not have the brother of. So that's an interesting footnote because this doesn't have the brother of in the text. So I'm not sure why that footnote is there, unless they're just simply acknowledging the forward reference verse, which is in 1 Chronicles chapter 20, which actually acknowledges the brother of. What a lot of translations will do is go ahead and add the brother of here in order to reconcile those two texts. I thought it was interesting that note was there when they don't address it in the text. And also another thing about this is something I'd say that I don't like about it, is I wish that they would italicize the supplied words, because this is a formal equivalent word for word translation in the same spirit of the King James. One cool thing about this is in the introductory material, you have a dedication and preface, and this is dedicated to the majesty of Queen Elizabeth II. So the translators view this as a legitimate update of the King James Version of the Bible. Now, while in spirit it may be, in order for a Bible to be a true update to the King James, it has to be issued by the Royal Crown in England. And this is an American translation. So yes, it can be considered an update to the King James in the sense that that's what the translators consider it. But legally speaking, it really would need to be done in England under the crown. But it's pretty cool that they acknowledge the Queen in this. And obviously this translation was done before her passing. It's been updated in 2024. A lot of the errors and mistakes have been fixed. And so far, I am really enjoying my reading experience of the MEV. God bless you. Keep calm. Jesus on. This is your Nicholsworth.